Hello, 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 the mask is back, and we have, for the return of UFC, a great card with a great YouTube return, if I can say so. And let's just jump into it. Adam Fujit versus Ty Miller. I was going to do a recap of last year, and I still will, but I'm a bit late to that one, so after this card. Ty Miller, Adam Fujit. I'm going with Ty Miller, pretty obviously. Adam Fujit, he's not particularly great anywhere. He's okay in the pocket, and he can throw a leg kick. That's about it, I'd say, for him. I'm gonna see. Do they go submission or KO? Okay, so I'm gonna go with a maybe second round KO, just to be a little different. Most people are probably picking decision or first round KO. I'm gonna go with second round there. Josh Hawkins versus Daniel Freeman. Denzel Freeman. Josh Hawkett, he has good pressure and decent hands in the pocket. Whereas Denzel Freeman, I mean, I did not watch his fight, I'm going to be honest, against the Polish guy who I picked against him. And from what I heard, they went to a low output leg kicks jab decision with a few punches in the pocket, where I think Josh Hawkett's going to be way better in the pocket and quicker and faster, and also he has the wrestling he can go to. Whereas Denzel Freeman, as far as I know, he just kind of went to a cardio kickboxing decision without the cardio against that Polish guy. So I'm gonna say he has quicker hands. I'm gonna say Josh Hockett gets a first round KO, just based on the fact that most people are picking him. I do not really recall much of Josh Hockett's fight. I did watch it, just not recently, and I do not remember watching Denzel Freeman's last fight. So with that being said, I'm just gonna go with Hockett because he's more proven and he's a huge favorite, and I think his speed I really like, and I'm hearing more promising things from him. Alex Perez, Charles Johnson. This is a pretty easy no-brainer. I feel like the pressure could get to Alex Perez, especially since he's kind of been getting finished more recently, I would say, in his losses. He did get that decision loss to Mokaev, which is certainly one of his more impressive performances. But in a lot of his other fights where he's going up against higher level comps, he's always getting finished. So I do think that Charles Johnson, it's certainly possible that he could finish him, but he's just not at that high level where I think Charles Johnson has been getting a lot of decisions. Now, to be fair, he has been also starching out cold these shorter guys like Loner Kavanagh, and even Joshua Van, which is still super impressive to this day. Deontay Wilder to this day. That's still to this day a goated line. Um, and he can sneak those uppercuts in. That is a very underrated game aspect to his game, Charles Johnson. But he also kind of likes to stall against the fence if it gets there. He doesn't really work the fence too much if you're up against the fence, or if he's up against the fence, he's like willing to stall along the fence. He's not really gonna work too much. And Alex Perez, he's pretty lethal on the fence. So I feel like even though he's the shorter guy, it's going to be insanely hard for him to get inside. I do think that Alex Perez can probably work his way to a 30-27. I don't think he's going to get starched here. I can see an uppercut KO or maybe a cross across the temple, but I'm going to go with the decision here. Nikita Krylov, Modestas Bukauskas. I've kind of flipped back and forth a little bit on this one, and I hate picking the favorite for almost every one of these fights, which I'm going to do on this card, unfortunately. However, I just think that Modestas Bukauskas, he has better hooks, a better cross, and a better jab. I do think that he is a little bit frantic with his offerings with his both offense and defense when his opponent is being very offensive and just blitzing at him. We saw that in moments against um, I'm forgetting the name, Marcin Prachnio, and even Ion Cutelaba at moments. We saw that these guys that rush in with some kind of loopy-ish punches, he kind of just holds his guard up at moments, and then if he doesn't land with the counter, he is going to get wobbled pretty clearly because he leaves his chin a little open at times there. But otherwise, against a guy who's going to play that tit for tat game, he plays it very defensively responsible. He keeps the guard quite high almost all the time. It's just when a guy like Marcin Prachnio has very dexterous kicks, will he sort of get caught in the middle of the exchanges. It's only something like that. But for the boxing, for the most part, he can play that tit for tat game quite well. And Nikita Krylov, even though he's better in the grappling, I have seen Modestas Bukauskas offensively grapple more efficiently lately than in past performances. So with that being said, against a guy who can out of nowhere hit a Hail Mary submission like Paul Craig, So with that being said, I do think that Nikita Krylov, maybe he can get some control time and win this fight on the wrestling, or possibly even a submission, because we don't even really know how good defensively Modestus is off his back or against submissions, anything like that. I do ultimately see that Modestus Bukauskas offensively can, I would say, hold his own. Defensively, it's a little unknown, but I'm gonna say, mm, I don't know if I want to do first round because he's not against a guy who he knows is defensively not all there, like a Rafael Sequeira. He's able to find it, so I'm gonna say first round KO, even though he's not really known for his KOs that often. And I mean, to be fair, he's getting more KOs. He even got against Paul Craig, but that's different. Tebo Gutierrez versus Andrei Puliev. Yeah, this is a no-brainer. I'm gonna go with second round though because Puliev is a tricky customer, like Lucas would say, the goat, Mr. Tracy. Because I do think that Ateba Gutierrez, his knees are absolutely lethal. He's very physical for the division, but the reach and the height is something that he hasn't really had to deal with that much. He had to deal with sort of closing the distance against that last opponent who, he kind of got thrown into the UFC last second. But Andrei Puliev, he has that UFC experience. He has some decent opposition that he's gone up against, especially CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan. And so I definitely think that the odds are a little crazy, but he deserves to be a pretty heavy favorite because Andrei Puliev, he does have decent distance management. He has some alright teep kicks. He has a nice one too, but let's be honest, yeah, his cross is pretty good too, but he kind of is low output. If you back him up against the fence, he doesn't really do much. He's kind of willing to accept a position up against the fence where you could kind of tee off a little bit. I think that he's going to get backed up at one point and he's going to get hit with a nasty knee to the body and then maybe a hook upstairs, something like that. Because Gutierrez's combinations are nasty and he has a really nice knee up the middle. That's something that we've noticed a ton with him. Um, Davison Figueiredo and Umar Nurmagomedov. I'm actually going with submission here. I understand that, like what MMHA was saying, how there's a good money lines, good odds on a decision for Umar. I do think that at this point, with how Davison looked up against him in the weigh-ins, the height and the weight miss, the differential is clear here. I think that it's just harder for Davison at this point in his career to sort of take these things seriously, like the weight, even the fact that he's going up against these bantamweights. It's just not really his natural weight class. I could see a decision like MMHA was saying prior this week, but Umar, I think that he's gonna find the moments where Davison, with him carrying more weight, it's gonna be maybe harder to take him down, but it's gonna be easier once it gets there for him to get to the back and find a nice position. Where Davison, like I said, carrying that more weight, it's gonna be more harder for him to fight off these positions. And so I do think that eventually he's going to find himself to the back. I believe he's going to get maybe not a rear naked where it's under the chin, but it's going to be a suffocating pressure to where Davison's going to tap anyways. I do think that when Davison works his way to the back of opponents, he's quite efficient from there too. However, I just don't think he's going to find those moments. I think that he's going to look for leg locks. He's going to look for some sort of maybe a knee bar, some sort of entanglement, maybe an arm bar. It's going to be hard for him here because Umar is constantly he's constantly changing positions. He's chaining these takedowns together. He's super well rounded and especially in the ground. Like he has some moments on the feet where Davison Figueiredo can line up the shot like he does, prod with the lead hand far out there like he usually does, and then just line up a straight right or whatever. But I really don't see even if he does, I don't see it putting Umar out cold completely. He has really good recoverability, similar to Alexander Volkov, or Volkanovski rather. And so I think he's going to recover from that moment. And even if Davison does follow up and Umar isn't completely knocked out, I do think that Umar's going to find his way to the back or to the legs and possibly make the whole situation that Davison created with the knockdown null and void because Davison in this matchup he can't really I feel like he can't really finish the fight. He has to rely on big moments, possibly moments that look like deep submissions and big knockdowns. So I really don't see that happening. I'm going to say second round submission for Umar here, late in the second. Arnold Allen versus Jean Silva. I'm going to go with Jean Silva here. I do think that this is a pretty simple breakdown here. I'll go with a first round KO, although I could see a second round. Even though people are predicting this is going to be a barn burner, I could see that realistically. However, I am going to say that Arnold Allen, I think he's just a little too hittable when he does that blitz. When he does that, okay, so he does the pull counter or the, he has that quick 1-2. But when he does that, he kind of, and if he lands, he kind of then lowers his hands after, and he gets caught rushing in after when he sees that his opponent's hurt. Even when his opponent isn't hurt, like when he was, like against Dan Hooker is when he was. Dan Hooker was really dazed, and even then he still found the moments to counter in between the fast twitch, blurry or flurry. It is possible for Arnold Allen because he is very quick twitch and fast and athletic, and he does have really good fundamentals. However, like I said, on that pull counter, on that 1-2, the cross is a little too wide at moments. I feel, and also I think that bouncy motion is predictable for John Silva, who he finds his reads against these guys who aren't hard chinned like Diego Lopez. It's hard in this matchup because John Silva has very accurate hands, probably top three as the most accurate in the division. He's so quick twitch as well for himself, and even despite him being very laxed and calm in the fight, he's still able to find these counters and find these moments. Now the jab was landing from Diego Lopez in moments, but I don't think that Arnold Allen is going to rely on the jab too much. I think he's going to. John Silva's going to bait him into a 1-2, and once that cross comes from Arnold Allen, John Silva's not going to be there, and he's going to land a beautiful hook to a cross, and it's going to put Arnold Allen down, and it could even put him out cold just with that, because I do think that I was going to get into my point where Max Holloway also cracked him. People forget at the end of the fight against Arnold Allen. It was the last 10 seconds, and Arnold Allen was going in with that blitz again, and recklessly because he felt sort of emotional in that moment. I think that the emotions are going to get to Arnold Allen more than John Silva would. He looks locked in, but to be honest, I think John Silva's more locked in for this one. So usually the emotions play in Silva's favor here. I mean, in all his fights, except for the final sequence against Lopez, but. Even in the first moment of the fight where he got taken down, but it's just I feel there's too many counter opportunities. Like when Arnold Allen does the blitz, most especially, it's like if Max Holloway is able to counter you, who does have good counters, but it's not like John Silva, and the power isn't as much there in featherweight at least for Max. And then even Dan Hooker at his slow, sort of dazed state or dazed state where you already rocked him and he's still able to find a cross in between it. I'm not liking that. I think the hook and the cross is both available right over the shoulder there. So I'm going to say first round KO for John Silva. Natalia Silva, Rose Namajunas. This one's also pretty self-explanatory. I like how I'm saying it's pretty self-explanatory, but then I'm taking forever to actually talk about it. Let's kind of rush through these ones. These ones are pretty simple picks. Silva, I could honestly see maybe some kind of a finish here, just because Rose Namajunas hasn't felt the power that Natalia Silva brings. Even if she's not actually completely starching these girls, she does rock them really, really bad. And she hasn't fought anyone in the division who can really crack like Natalia Silva. I mean, she has fought Manon Fiorot, but Manon Fiorot, it was kind of different. I mean, to be fair, I was gonna say it's kind of different because Manon Fiorot has been getting better with the landing with the cleaner sort of on the temple or on the chin. But then again, that's against Jasmine Jusudavicius, who's not nearly the striker that Rose Namajunas is. So that's not really the point here. But I feel like Rose's game is going to be kind of nulled here as well because Rose Namajunas, she likes to fight on the back foot, work her kicks, then come in with the cross hook sometimes. She likes to play that long range game. She works off her teeps and leg kicks and feints especially. But Natalia Silva, she's not going to be worried about all those feints because she's going to have the better, actual better countering ability. She's going to have I think the quicker, more faster, accurate punches and kicks. Her kicks are insane. And even though Rose showed some snappy kicks against Whaley down at what was it, flyweight? Or no, this is flyweight. Strawweight. I think that at this weight, now that she's had a few fights at this weight, I think that Natalia is going to be faster. I think that Rose doesn't have that lighter woman skill anymore. So I do think that those kicks are going to snap up, and I think that she's going to knock down Rose at a few moments. Or not a few moments, but at one moment. with one of those kicks, or maybe even a long wide hook. The way that Natalia is able to get away with the sort of wide punches usually is because she's so fast, and I really think that that speed advantage is going to be tough for Rose to deal with. I think that she's going to try to grapple in a couple moments, but it's just not going to work because she's too evasive. And even then, she has her judo that she could rely on to sort of shuck off Rose with any takedown offerings. So yeah, 30-27 I'll go with, but I can even see a finish. D. Lou versus WCA. I'm going with D. Lou. Derek Lewis, the Black Beast. I'm going with Derek Lewis, okay? I don't care. This is my one underdog so far. Now, I know, Waldo has really good head movement and really nice counters. But Derek Lewis, and this is something that people aren't talking about. MMA Chase said that he has a really good overhand and that Sergey Spivak was landing the overhand on Waldo Cortez Acosta in their fight. But that's not it. Derek Lewis doesn't just have the overhand in this fight. I know that like the overhand can land over the jab, but also Derek Lewis has a very underrated jumping switch kick where he jumps with the one leg and then he switches with the other kick. Even if it doesn't land to the head, he has that to the body, and even without the jump, he has some underrated body kicks, honestly. He kind of measures distance with that a little bit, and then he measures for the overhand. Now, Derek Lewis, yes, he has hooks and overhands, and he doesn't really utilize the jab too often. That's certainly worrying in this matchup where Waldo Cortez can line up that overhand himself with the jab quite effectively. But otherwise, he hasn't really shown his wrestling against any of the blobs other than Robelas de Spain, where it was a huge height and reach disadvantage, and nobody tested Robelas de Spain in the wrestling, and even freaking I can't believe I'm forgetting the guy's name, the NFL guy or whatever it was, the freaking 6'5" guy who gets KO'd in every other fight, who got KO'd by Mario Pinto. That guy also was able to take down the freaking Robelas de Spain to a decision. So I don't really think that that showcases his grappling too well. Derek Lewis is probably going to be aware of the grappling, and he has better grappling in my opinion, because he was also taken down Tai Tuivasa in certain moments. Now, granted, he was also getting taken down effortlessly by Sergey Spivak, and he also, Tai Tuivasa got back up. But my point still stands. Derek Lewis has some crafty takedowns. He has some really good kicks underrated to the body, and sometimes those switch kicks land to the head, and even those flying knees can land to the head. You saw that against De Lima or Rodrigo De Lima. What's the guy's name? No, not you. Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, yeah. So I think that we're going to see a freaking first or second round KO. I'm going to go with first because in heavyweight, I feel that's the more likely option. Waldo Cortez Acosta is going to be landing the sort of maybe the 1-2, maybe some counter hooks. But then Derek Lewis is just going to, when he goes in with the freaking jab, Waldo, at one moment, Derek Lewis is going to time it. He's going to duck under and then lean up with the overhand. And he even has a decent uppercut you saw against Curtis Blades. But I think the overhand's going to land. And then he's going to sort of do a jumping switch kick or something crazy. And it's going to rock Waldo. And then Derek is just going to follow up with some nasty hooks up along the fence. Sort of like against Kyle Dawkins. That's a big underdog there, I think. And I'm not underestimating Waldo. I think he's really good, but I do think he relies on the head movement a little too much, and he doesn't really defend the body. Song Yadong versus, or Yadong Song, I guess Tapology says, versus Sean O'Malley. I have to go with Sean here. I'm actually going to go with a third round KO. I'm playing it a little risky here because Yadong has a hard head, but let's be honest, he's been through a lot more wars than Sean has. Sean has a few wars at this point in his career, but it's nothing like the amount of experience. And I think that that's a bad thing for his age, for Song Yadong. It's nothing like the experience that Song had in his career, where he's just getting way too much damage, even against Henry Cejudo, who's quick twitch, but only in the first few rounds, and he was having moments against Song Yadong. I do think that people overrate how good Henry was doing in that fight, but Song Yadong, he is very open to the jab, we'll say. Sean has a very long rangey jab, even though the height isn't as crazy as it looks on the weigh-ins and all that. I still think that it's way too much. I think that he's way too quick with the 1-2, Sean O'Malley is. I think that the leg kicks are there, the spinning back kicks to the body, to the head. It's all there so much, and then he feints the uppercuts. He feints. His feints are so beautiful. The way that I know it's Eddie Wineland, okay, but that freaking name. But the way that he feinted the uppercut, then come upstairs with the jab and then the cross. Oh man, it was a thing of beauty. And I know I'm glazing a bit, but Sang Yadong, he really doesn't have that many entries. He kind of has to rely on you getting a little too close into the pocket and then circling to find the beautiful counter hook. Yeah, he has a nice right hook. He has a solid left hook as well, but his jab isn't really. He utilizes it at moments, but he doesn't use it as much as I'd like. And otherwise, he kind of relies on you making a mistake to enter the pocket usually, and him being explosive and fast twitch to sort of blitz in reliably while keeping his chin tucked to find the moments to back you up. But it's not enough. And he does have really good grappling. To be fair, I really liked what I saw against Piotr Jan, and I knew that he was gonna, with the threat of the takedown, land some stuff and keep Piotr Jan worried, which is why I picked him against Piotr Jan. In hindsight, yes, Piotr Jan, even though he was coming off against that loss against Murab, that's just a different specimen, Murab. And Yudong does not have that cardio. I think the third round is really going to show Yudong does not have really that high level cardio. Even in the Corey Sandhagen fight against Piotr Jan, he was losing in the later rounds. Corey, he was losing in the later rounds. It's just a thing with Yudong. Even on Henry Cejudo fight, yes, I think that Sadong, what? Song Yudong was pouring it on in the later rounds, but that's because Henry Cejudo has even worse gas tank in this point in his career. I just think he's gone up against these older guys, and whenever he goes up against anyone who has the distance management, it's just too much for him. These older guys he's able to smash, but even these older guys have moments with the jab, with the 1-2, with the distance management, with the leg kicks. Sean is going to pick him apart from that range, so I'm going to say third round KO. It's just going to be too much damage. And Paddy Pimblett versus Justin the High Guy Gaethje. Let's go, Aryan Chad. The Aryan Chad, Paddy Pimblett. Let's go, baby. I'm going with the Aryan Chad. I mean, I wanted to... That sounds so fucking stupid. No, no. I'm just joking around. But I'm going with Paddy by a second round submission, I'll say. I think that Justin is going to have a really nice time landing to the body because he has a nice hook and especially jab to the body. However, Paddy Pimblett, even though he looks terrible with that bolo uppercut, okay, his chin is still wide open. He kind of throws with an awkward form, even with his jab, where he sort of lets his backhand, which should be the tucked to his chin, like the hand he uses for the cross. He'll have it like way back behind his shoulder. Yeah, his technique looks kind of stupid on the feet at times, but he makes it work because he's so big for the division. He always has a reach advantage and usually a height advantage. He is the taller guy in this matchup. You could see it in the weigh-ins. But Justin is listed as 5'11", I guess. It doesn't really matter. Justin has really good hooks in the pocket and uppercuts. He has to watch out for that. If Paddy gets into the clinch, that's going to be very dangerous for him. However, if Paddy can work that into a body lock and then potentially drag him down, now that's where it gets interesting. And if he could shoot a double leg, like we've seen in the regional scene, that's very interesting. That's something which we're going to hope for if we're picking Paddy here. But Justin Gaethje, man, I really think that Justin Gaethje, he is going to have a hard time landing the hooks upstairs or the cross upstairs or even the jab upstairs. I think the jab is going to land a few times, but then Paddy's going to get his reach is going to be too hard for him. I love that Paddy, he's now in his career, even though he still looks super sloppy on the feet, his blitzes are something that you have to respect with how athletic and powerful he genuinely is, and with the ferocity that he throws all this, it's going to be tough, especially with the fact that Justin Gaethje dips into the head kicks, which isn't all too bad because he does kind of shell up decently well, but if you duck into it at the wrong time with like your face going into it as opposed to your forehead, that's going to be pretty nasty. And so I do think that not just that, but like I was saying prior, I like the distance management from Paddy, the way that he's prodding with the lead hand. It's not as good as some other fighters that do that, like especially on Alexander Volkanovski, for example. He does that super well, where he turns the lead hand into a super fast twitch jab at moments, and Paddy does do that at times, but it's not exactly perfect. He kind of keeps his hand a little too up, where he should keep it a little further to sort of post on the opponent's shoulder if they try to come a little too close, like Piotr did against Merab, where Merab tried to land the overhand and it just landed on the shoulder. I think that Paddy is going to have moments like that, though, where even if it's not It's not perfect. It's not exactly like Petr Yan's long guard. I think I like that sort of prodding with the lead hand because Justin Gaethje is going to try and measure with the body and then come up top with like a overhand right, for example. And I think it's just going to hit the shoulder and it's going to miss in certain moments. And it's not going to land effectively. So even if he could back up Paddy, I think that Paddy's style is getting better for this sort of boxing plotty style where Justin Gaethje has really good leg kicks, but so does Paddy now. Even body kicks and head kicks he can rip up. I just think that if it gets to the ground, which at some point in some exchange, if one of them gets dropped, or if Paddy even just goes to the ground with some sloppy sort of DTP style takedown, I think one way or another, it's going to end up there where on the feet, it's a little frustrating for Justin Gaethje where he is going to land, and he is going to land a few uppercuts in the clinch if it gets there. Paddy's going to get rocked in a few moments. It's going to be a little shady in the first round, but then the second round comes, and the leg is ate up of Justin Gaethje. He no longer has that quick twitch. Okay, he's going to like go left hook to the body, right upstairs. I don't think that he's going to have those moments like he did in the first round, and I think he's going to get he's going to get a little desperate, and Paddy's going to find his way to a leg or the triangle or even the back. I'm gonna say rear naked. I could see a triangle, but I'm gonna say rear naked, and I could see even like a leg maybe he gets, but in order I would say probably rear naked most likely, then triangle, then armbar or leg lock. Those are my picks there. For Paddy submissions. And I do think that Justin's really. I was going back and forth because I think he's a really solid pick here. If Paddy fights, if he makes it like the uppercut's a little too obvious, if he gets backed up to the fence and to the fence and he can't like reliably escape, and then Justin sort of James Vicks him, I could totally see that. But I just think that Paddy is way more athletic than a James Vick. Yes, he's maybe more comparable in the offense. I mean in the defense when he's backed up to James Vick. But I do think that I'm getting confused with James Vick now. I do think that Paddy is the takedown threat is there and the submission threat and the jiu-jitsu. So ultimately, I think that there's way more there that Justin Gaethje has to worry about. That's more of a complete package than other opponents that he's had more of a easier time closing the distance with. So yeah, that's my predictions for UFC 324. We're back. Paramount, baby. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Mask of MMA out.